the door came crashing down. And when I say crashing, my lord, I mean it came down. There were people all over the place in uniform. They were hooded. At that point, I had already taken 2 steps into the bathroom, which is not far from the bedroom, just within the room. And as I was moving back, one person in particular came directly to me, held a gun at me and cocked it, and just stood there. I thought I was dead. I just stood there, I froze. But I was hearing what was going on, and my husband was saying, "What is it? Why are you beating me? Bah, don't! What did I? Bah, bah." I was just hearing his shouts. I could hear it, and I was transfixed. I could not even move because somebody was standing at me, handling a gun. Within a few minutes, it was all over. Bing, 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 bah, bah, bah. Before I knew it, it's like the man standing next to me. I don't even know when he left because I couldn't. I wasn't myself. I ran down the steps. I followed them all the way down till I got outside. At the point I got outside, I saw army men everywhere. There was they are taking him away.
He asked me whether they smoke marijuana in my family. No, but so I just said, please, I don't care what you want to do to me, but at this point in time, just like I told Mustapha that night, pleading with him, I just want to know the whereabouts of my wife and children. I asked the same thing of Omenka. That regard what you want to do, please. He said, Professor, life above vacuum. As for your wife and your daughters, your neighbors will be fed. That's the word they used. He said, don't worry about them. They're already taking care of them for you.
Major General A.T. Olaruwaju, Major General A.K. Adisa, Lieutenant Colonel O. Akinyode, Major O. Fadikwe, Major B.M. Mohammed, W.2 Koka Oladisun, Corporal I. Kontagora, Corporal Edi Ebuno, Engineer A. Adebanjo, Mr. Owatimain Abimbola, Mrs. Shola Shoile, and Professor Femi Odekunle. Mrs. Shola Shoile, charge 1, treason, finding, not guilty. Charge 2, conspiracy to commit treason, finding, not guilty of the charge, but guilty of concealment of treason. Professor Femi Odekunle, charge 1, treason, finding, not guilty. Charge 2, conspiracy to commit treason, finding, not guilty.
Major General Malu says all sentences are subject to confirmation by the Provisional Ruling Council. The tribunal further ordered that all properties of any of the convicted persons which are illegally acquired.
I declare that in addition to my swearing with the Holy Bible, I'm coming to you with clean hands. I may be emotional, but I'll be honest.
In 1997, Professor Femi Odekunle was roped into the failed coup attempt by General Oladipo in his capacity as senior special advisor to the then CGS General Oladipo. He was charged for treason and conspiracy to commit treason. Eventually, he was found innocent of both and he was freed and discharged. In this episode, Professor Femi Odekunle gives us an eyewitness account of what he witnessed in the hands of Major Hamza al-Mustapha, former Chief Security Officer to General Sani Abacha, on the night that he was arrested for a coup he knew nothing about. Professor Femi Odekunle was a national icon and a legend at Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, who contributed greatly to the development of the university and the country at large. He was a public intellectual, a scholar of repute, and a consultant on criminological issues. Acknowledged as the first professor of criminology in Nigeria, the thrust of his academic and professional career have covered teaching, research/publication, public advice, and public enlightenment in the areas of sociology of law, crime prevention and control, policing and law enforcement, courts and justice administration, security, governance/corruption, all in the context of socio-economic and political developments.
Chairman, Advisory Committee to the Chief of General Staff on socio-political and economic matters. It was a full-time appointment at the level...
Councillor, I thought you asked me to read Exhibit 1. Yes.
I'm reading, and I believe
Exhibit
I will be
one,
guided,
yes.
so that it doesn't sound like a sermon.
Yes.
After completing primary education at Otakpete Methodist School in 1955, secondary education at Ilesha Grammar School in 1962, and higher secondary school at Molusi College, Ijebu-Igbo in 1964, Femi Odekunle was further educated at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, and Ivy League's University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, between 1969 and 1974 in sociology and criminology, respectively. He trained at Pennsylvania on scholarship as a University of Ibadan Rockefeller Foundation scholar, as well as a Russell Sage Fellow.
While my family was preparing to go on Christmas holidays, I was sleeping in my residence with my wife and children when I was suddenly and violently seized by unidentifiable security operatives sent by Major Hamza al-Mustapha, the then Chief Security Officer to the leader of state, Sani Abacha. Within a few minutes of that horrible encounter, I was physically battered, I was bloodied, and brutally bundled into a vehicle in the middle of the hooded operatives and driven to Aso Rock, where another horde of such operatives, Major Mustapha, was holding court. As it were, it was from his and other violent questioning that I had the first inkling that my seizure had to do with some alleged role in some alleged coup d'etat. An allegation presumably contingent only on the fact of my being a Yoruba person. The reason being that, as it will show later, there was no evidence, documentary or verbal at all, and the shouting by Mustapha about you Yoruba people, we give you second in command, it's not for you, where are you now, and so on and so forth. And the fact that of the three advisors, only two of us were arrested. The third one was not even questioned, who is my colleague that I invited to join the advisory committee from Ahmadu Bello University. We have postponed paragraph 6. Now, just a break here, Mr. Chairman, before I go to paragraph 7, when I want to talk about Gado Nasko barracks. I told myself that if anybody did me evil, and the person says, I deny doing you evil, okay, the commission has the records, but what will satisfy me, if the person was a Christian or a Muslim, whichever applies, they should put their hand on that publicly and swear that if they were denied wrongly, they should be punished by God. I will be satisfied, I will leave them, because I know they will go to hell and to Satan.
Having taught criminology and sociology in the United States of America at Lincoln University for about 2 years, he returned to Nigeria in 1974 to assume duties as lecturer 2 at Ahmadu Bello University, where he started the criminology training program. Professor Femi Odekunle has been a full professor for about 35 years. During the period, he also served as a faculty sub-dean, head of department, dean of faculty of social sciences, Senate-elected member of the Governing Council of ABU, government-appointed member of the Governing Council of the University of Lagos, and Board of Regents appointed member of the Governing Council of Igbenidion University.
Because I want to save the time of the commission. Now, sometimes thereafter, Mr. Chairman, I was again brutally bundled into another vehicle, bloodied, thoroughly beaten, again sandwiched between the operatives and taken to Gado Nasko barracks, where I was able to cite other known and unknown detainees. In that place, our number in each cell, about 6 by 6 feet, varied from about 3 to 6 detainees. We were allowed to use the toilet only once a day. And we got to take bath only after 2 weeks, once. And here I must tell you, sir, that when you are allowed to go to toilet once a day, I do not mean anytime you wanted. At 6:30 a.m., you will be woken up, you'll be marched in a way that you must not turn your neck left or right. And by the time you get to the toilet, there is another operative there. By the time you are just getting down, it says time up. Now, we had to design ways of easing ourselves, regardless of the odor and the smell in this 6 by 6 room, where you cannot stretch by yourself, you have to sleep on one another. Now, sir, we were allowed to use the toilet, as I said, only once a day. In that place, one significant incident took place on the 9th of 2nd January. Now, you may be wondering, having been battered, how did I know the date? I had a way of using my nail to mark the dates on the wall of the room, because the nail had grown anyway. Major Adamu Argugun got me taken out of my cell, handcuffs, leg cuffs, and drove me with Sergeant Rogers sitting in the back seat out of the premises of the detention of Gado Nasko barracks. While he was driving, he was hurling invectives at me. In particular, he was very angry because of a letter they discovered, a copy of a letter I wrote to the FC minister concerning the need to name a befitting avenue or way after Chief Femi Awolowo, as has been done for other founding nationalists. He was asking me whether that was my business. Eventually, he drove into a compound, which happened to be Major Mustapha's residence. Major Mustapha, I was first taken to the basement, then he came down and said I should be brought up, and he questioned me over and over again, alone by himself. Considered me uncooperative and called Agugun to take me back. And he warned me. He said I should not tell anyone that he had talked to me. To my thinking that time, the trip and questioning would have been illegal and unprocedural. So I must say at this point in time that there are things you are missing that even my lawyer may not get. Both in my residence, at the villa where I was being beaten and bundled around, like I said, like an offending goat in a village market, on a village market day. And at this presence of this all-powerful Mustapha, I was thoroughly broken down. The only thing I had, sir, and I must thank God, was my mind. Tell me what to know and I will help you. I just want to know about my family, my wife and children. I will help you if you cooperate. There is Idia, there is Aziza, they have talked about you. I said, even though I want to see my family as I'm begging and pleading with you, Mustapha, I cannot do that because I do not want to go to hell while implicating innocent people. I do not know anything about the matter. And I'm sure, since the man has been giving you absolute truth, he will give you the same absolute truth that I told him that. That is how I was physically broken down, but not mentally, despite the torture. Now, just prisons, interrogations, and trial. About 2 weeks later, that is after we got to Gado Nasko, we were moved to just prisons, where a section thereof had apparently been prepared specifically for us. For example, freshly concreted iron hooks on the floor and the walls, leg chains. The journey to Jos was very hectic and dangerous. It took, even though they must have been going in these heavy black Marias, it took about 12 hours because they went via Kaduna and Kashia. I was leg chained to the only other 2 people in the small black Maria I was in. That is, the person on my left, Major Aliyu. My left hand was hooked to his right hand. My left leg was hooked to his right leg. The man on my right, that is Corporal Kutangora, my right was handcuffed to his left hand, left wrist. And my right leg was hooked to his, what is that now? to his left leg. During the 12 hours, if we wanted to urinate, all of us had to arrange to go down in such a way that one of us would do whether number 1 or number 2. This is how we got to Jos without food, all day, all night. On arrival in Jos, and about arrival in Jos, you'll be surprised what the human beings can do. 3 of us got down, despite those hooks, we were made to get down together. And all the gutters we had to skip to move to the building, we were doing it together. That's how we climbed the staircase, 3 of us that way. I remember 2 of us, the first thing we did when we were put in a room was to urinate on the floor. Now, when we arrived there and we were allocated a cell, I was, Femi Odekunle, unlike others, changed to the hook on the floor by my wrist. Others were changed, the hook on their feet were hooked to the concrete hook on the floor already. In my own case, they put me with my hand hooked to the floor. I remember this Major Momoni, and I'm going to get to this when we talk about military. There are many good ones of them, only a few bad eggs. Now, Major Momoni said, no, why are you putting him like that? Sergeant Rogers said, that is special instruction from Abuja on this particular one. I remember vividly. Sergeant Rogers said, this is special instruction on this particular. How do you hook somebody down with his hand? And I was like this all night. I was crying because my back was killing me. Throughout, sir, life as a summary was very hectic. It was lonely. It was solitary. And always, but I got advantage because I rediscovered God. So whenever the opportunity arose to take me to town, I was always thanking God. That's about once in 2 or 3 weeks. Because you are in this place, dark room, alone, hooked leg and chain, and you never see the sky. So the day you see the sky, you know, I'm warning all of you, you should be thanking God anytime you wake up in the morning. Because this sky you see free of charge. When you don't see it, you will miss it. I used to thank God when I saw the sky. I didn't know it was so beautiful. I didn't know it was so wonderful and mysterious. Now, sir, it was during this period that I developed high blood pressure. I'm a teacher. I talk. I give lectures. When I get angry, it shows. I don't hide it. So doctors always said I would never have blood pressure. But the doctor in the prison there who used to see us said, Professor, your brain is eating your flesh. I put him exactly. He said, Prof, you have a problem. Your brain is eating your flesh. Because my 34 waist became 28. Now, I'm still carrying around, sir, this blood pressure. But I'm sure, by the power of God, it will continue to be controlled. Now, I was variously interrogated by the Colonel Omenka group, and finally, by the General Chris Garuba, SIP, about mid-January. Throughout, sir, there was no verbal or documentary evidence against me. I repeat, throughout, there was neither verbal nor documentary evidence against me. I need to say this because in trying to save the time of the commission, I'm denying you the flesh, I'm giving you only the bone. So occasionally, you give me 30 seconds, a minute to put some flesh. By the time I saw Omenka, sir, we were waking up in the morning by 6 a.m. and they took us to town where they were doing the interrogation. Of course, you are hooked. Your clothes are torn because they have not changed clothes at that point in time. It's the pajamas I had since December that was on my body. And that's what I was using to sleep on the floor, on mud, on everything. Now, by the time you go there, you sit in front of the building. On the floor, when I say floor, I don't mean cemented floor. And you are there all day. Then about 7 p.m., they call me in. Now, even if I've been eating, I've been taking vitamins, how do I answer questions reasonably when I've been out since 6 a.m. and you are calling in 7 p.m. with people who have been smoking cigarettes and taking coffee and heavy, and there are about 10 of them, and they put such light on your face? Of course, I was shaking like a lily leaf because it was clear that there was a plan to execute me for nothing, whether for my political antecedent, for my ideological disposition, for my insistence that Nigeria belongs to everybody and we are all equal, regardless of where you come from. I know that is my belief, that was my belief, that will be my belief till I die. All Nigerians are equal. Now, if some people don't like it, that could explain this particular situation. So when I went in, Omenka, after talking to me, let me just give you some of the jibes. He said, he asked me whether he said, I saw you in '89 giving lectures. There was a seminar on security, and professors were called. And in a particular way, with due respect, without being modest, in the area of technology in Nigeria, I'm like a doyen of the younger folks. So he said he liked my lecture, and he was very pleased. He said, but in front of him now, I'm nothing but a wreck. I said, yes, sir. It's not possible. So I just kept quiet. Then he said, you said you were going to travel, that you didn't know about any coup. You already got the permission to go on Christmas vacation. I said, yes. He said, I remember your town. It used to be one of the best towns in the olden days. Anybody who was going from the south to the east or the north must pass through Elisha. He said, but now it's a dilapidated place. I said, yes, sir. He asked me whether my father has a history of mental illness. He asked me whether they smoke marijuana in my family. No, but so I just said, please, I don't care what you want to do to me, but at this point in time, just like I told Mustapha that night, pleading with him, I just want to know the whereabouts of my wife and children. I asked the same thing of Omenka, that regardless what you want to do, please. He said, Professor, life abhors vacuum. As for your wife and your daughters, your neighbors will be fucking them. That's the word they used. He said, don't worry about them. They're already taking care of them for you. Then I said, what have I done? I have served this country very well. I've been teaching for nearly 30 years. I've been graduating people. I've been giving advice honestly. What do I do to deserve this? Then he asked me, have you ever heard of a book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People? I said, no, I've not. He said, when I finish with you, you go and meet the author in hell, because he's dead already. Of course, these are the ways. And then they will tell you, after grilling you down for 3 hours, they will take you to a room and give you a paper. Go and write statement as to what you have just told us. I've been out all day. You have grilled me for about 2-3 hours. My lips are already cracked. I'm already gaunt. Then you tell me now, write a statement as to what you have discussed in the last 3 hours. But fortunately, it's good. People should have education. Because fortunately, all the statements I made at different times came out to be systematic, to be rational, because they were honest. But that's the condition in which we found ourselves. Now, the other panel, sir, Major General Chris Garuba panel. That was the panel at the end that looked at the submissions of Omenka. I would say that, from my knowledge, regardless of what anybody says here, that panel was just a facade. General Garuba was a complete gentleman. He was nice to us. He appeared considerate. You could see sympathy in his eyes. So I am emphasizing this matter because Nigerians keep blaming the military. It is individuals, not the military. This man did not violate my right at all. This man was the first, I could say, virtually human person I met during those first 2-3 months in there. Now, as I was saying, however, regardless of his recommendation, there was no verbal or documented evidence against me. But about middle of February, sir, I was among those arraigned for trial before the General Victor Malu Special Military Tribunal. Despite the absence of any verbal or documentary evidence, of course, they claim they had evidence. They say they found one memo, 2 pages, inside the General Diaz's drawer, in which I was advocating that this country to be okay, things must be distributed equally. People should use the power of their office. For example, I said in the memo that if you have 5 security agencies, they cannot all be Yorubas. One must be a Yoruba, one an Igbo man, one another minority, one another southern minority, and one an Hausa Fulani. You cannot have them coming from Igbo land alone, something like that. And that you should look for the welfare of Nigerians. And that DIA should use the power of his office, which is Chief of General Staff. So they said that's the only thing they could get. And they said, and it was written in 1994, just 4 or 5 months after I took over as chairman of this advisory committee. But they said it is not true that I wrote it only that December. Of course, I'm not going to that now. I'm just trying to say when I said they had no evidence against me, that's the only thing they could hold their hand to try me, that by implication I'm anti-Abacha, but of course it was eventually thrown out by General Malu. Now, 2 things I need to mention here because I'm making a case. In respect to the day we were arraigned before General Victor Malu, of course, most people will look like chicken. If I show you, I would like to tender, actually, through my lawyer later, my picture at the arraignment. I looked like a Fulani man who had not eaten food for 10 years. The nose was thin, the cheeks were in.
There is a picture there. Counsel, he said you tendered a
Prof.
I was just kidding.
Hello, Prof. You can see that Ibrahim Buba is objecting because you said Fulani man who has not eaten for 10 years.
With all due respect,
have you got the photograph?
I will advise that you move on.
Yes,
no,
sir.
let me alone. Go on with your story. Don't stop him.
I'm not
Have
saying,
you got the photograph? What he looked like, whether he's like a Fulani?
I will bring it. Please, if with due respect, if my wife can bring my bag.
Please give. Why don't you sit with a bar? You're a lawyer.
I'm sure it doesn't mean any harm. It is common knowledge that Fulanis are very slim people. And it is good to be slim. You are healthier when you are slim. You are an exceptional Fulani man. My other friend is...
Tendered photograph.
I will need the photocopy.
It's exhibit 2.
No, I don't have another copy at all. It's from the press.
Prof, please continue.
Yes, sir. Now, I was talking about the day we were taken for arraignment. There are 2 things that happened that should be brought to the attention of the court. because I'm making a case that there was no evidence against me. It was simply a case of bad belly. One, in one of the pre-named large envelopes for a brief perusal and issued under the signature of the then Chief of Defense Staff, General Salami Abubakar, with the approval of the head of state commander-in-chief, it was stated that sentences of the tribunal are subject to confirmation by the PRC. That is, those without sentences need no such confirmation. That is my commonsensical understanding. Only a convict is sentenced. When you are not convicted, you are not sentenced. Now, they gave these envelopes to everybody, where the arraignment papers are, your particular charge with your name, and so on and so forth. I've told you one thing there. It was stated, sentences of the tribunal are subject to confirmation by PRC, meaning those without sentence need no such confirmation. Two is this one. Unlike others, my own envelope had no charge sheet. Though I was about to be arraigned within 4 or 5 minutes in front of General Malu. So I asked Major Bashiru Momoni, who was distributing the envelopes. I asked him that there was no charge in my own paper. He said something to the effect, "Don't worry, one will be found for you." On this point, Mr. Chairman, it is very instructive to state that the 2 separate charges eventually brought against me, 1, treason, 2, conspiracy to commit treason, each one carrying a death sentence by firing squad if convicted, were not framed until the very morning I was about to enter the courtroom for the actual trial 4 weeks later. The lawyer they gave me, the court-appointed lawyer, was worried that we have not been able to find charge for you. He will go to the secretariat and ask them, what is the charge since you have given me this client? They will tell him they will find one. Evening before, they said they gave treasonable felony. When we were going to court in the morning for my actual trial, that was 4 weeks after they said they would find one for me. It became, I think somebody said, let's give the man the maximum. So they gave me treason and conspiracy to commit treason. And I was worried. But that is another matter. Because I was somehow worried when the judge advocate, for those who do not know, the judge advocate is the lawyer of the tribunal, was summarizing cases. He said this man, no verbal evidence, nobody said he was in a meeting, no document was found, kaza like that. Now, so he was recommending indirectly that the charge of treason could not hold. But except for conspiracy, because he was in the army, he had to do his job. Maybe, I don't know whether somebody told him that this man has to be convicted at all costs. He said conspiracy does not mean you have to be in a meeting or they have to see you talking to anybody. He said conspiracy can be what is in my mind and in the mind of those other people. When I heard that, I said Motiku, because I really thought, this man, they want to get me because I was so in the clear. Yes, I might have been so-called, in quote, radical. I might have been this, I might have been that. I might have a big mouth. But I did not know anything about coup plotting. It is true I write memos that are straight to the point, that are honest. I didn't care whose source was God. But I never planned a coup. I didn't know of a coup. So I might not like the former head of state the way he was carrying on, but I never knew or planned a coup. Now, so when that man said that, I said, this my Ghana as Yakari today, this man is going to get me convicted of conspiracy. And it's the same penalty, death by firing squad. Now, but let me go to the judgment and the trial and after, sir. Upon the conclusion of the trials, judgment was eventually delivered. This date is important. April 28, 1998. And by the grace of God Almighty, I was found not guilty on the 2 charges, and therefore discharged and acquitted on each of the 2 separate charges. In other words, I'm here before you, not as somebody who was pardoned by Abu Salami. I'm here on my own as somebody who was found not guilty. I'm not a pardoned person. Importantly, the tribunal chairman, General Malu, while reading his judgment, stated that all those discharged and acquitted were released and free to go to their homes right from that courtroom. I repeat, he said, all those he had discharged and acquitted were released immediately and free to go to their homes right from that courtroom. In post-delivery answers to some questions, I think, from the press, he repeated that statement. Of course, you could imagine, despite the fact that people I know were going to be executed, and I was praying that it would be, because I remember I told Dia, when we were going, I said, General, whatever is the judgment today will not be the last of the matter. I said, in all my dreams, I never saw anybody executed. So when the judgment was given, and himself, Fadikwe and the like, and some of the witnesses are here, were giving these sentences, I also went back to him to say, of course, people now, those who are discharged and acquitted, were trying to avoid him. But I went to sit with him. I said, do not worry. Have faith in God. I don't think this is the last of the matter. I was a little, it's like, I'm going home. I'm going to see my wife and my children. I want to know the condition of my 84, 85-year-old father, whether he had passed out or whatever. Sir, that was a joke. Oh, I need a point to make one point here, sir. To me, and God is my witness, as far as I know, General Malu was fair to everybody. He gave people opportunity to defend themselves. Of course, technically, he has to use the technicalities of the law. But I am telling you, he insisted that we should be giving reading glasses. He insisted that we should be giving our Bibles and Qurans. He insisted that we should have lights in our rooms. Of course, some of these were violated by the operatives under who you know who. But I want it to be on record. That man was fair, and he gave opportunity to people to defend themselves. I remember when they were trying to do wuru-wuru with my statements. The secretariat said, we do not have the read part of my thought statements. And luckily, they didn't know that every time I wrote a statement, I would say, this is my first statement. They told me not to write it, but I say I hear. But I was writing it. This is my second statement. This is my third. This is my fourth. So when they were reading only my third statement, then they pointed out that, but this is third statement. What about number 1, number 2, and number 4? They said they cannot find it, that Malu should continue the trial. He said he will not continue the trial, that they must go and find it. They say it's in the secretariat. If we just he said he will not proceed. For 1 hour, he made sure they produced those documents. That's a good example. When General Dia was insisting on Bameyi showing up, the man delayed and made sure Bameyi came to give evidence. That's why the fact he was chief of army staff. So I'm trying to say that I do not know his other faults. Nobody is perfect. But as far as I know, he tried to be fair to everybody in terms of technicalities and procedure. Having said that, as soon as that tribunal rose, Mr. Chairman, we were all headed back like cattle into just prisons, and under the same physical and social, psychologically inhuman and torturous condition as had been our lot all the while. 24-hour lockup in solitary cells without light, except for occasional permission for the call of nature or to throw us our 2 meals per day. 2 meals per day you think is very nice. Let me tell you how it happens. They bring the first meal about 12:01. Then they'll bring the second meal about 4. Because the person cooking must quickly pack up and they must lock up the cells. So you are giving me 2 meals per day, but you give one at about 12:01 and you give the other one about 4:30. Of course, these are some of the experiences that could be last longing if one was not careful or if one does not have the grace and blessing of God upon his head. Now, I was discharged and acquitted. The judge who was appointed by the authorities, the prosecutor by the authorities, my own lawyer by the authorities, everybody by the authorities, even the air I was breathing, the oxygen, is only what was allowed by the authorities. Yet, they found me not guilty. You still did not let me go. What kind of wickedness? What kind of, I don't understand it. And they returned me to the same situation of chains, legs, hooks. Now, I was denied access to any form of information concerning my tribunal declared release, my family. You can imagine the torture of my family. I mean, when my wife somebody first gave wrong information from Lagos, another lawyer called my wife and said, sorry for your husband, he was only given life imprisonment. The woman just fainted. Until my sister came and said, you didn't hear it very well on CNN, that he was discharged and acquitted. Then she started crying uncontrollably for about 2-3 hours. Because the woman had been fasting for about 4 months to see that her husband, the father of her children, is released. So, but these are the kind of things that you are discharged and acquitted, yet your family cannot see you. You don't know whether you have been shot. I told you that I will tell you the truth. I will tell you something later about this non-release. Now, I was eventually released about 2.5 months later. Specifically on July 15, 1998, without any explanation whatsoever, let alone apology and compensation for the over 2.5 months patently illegal, illegitimate, unjustifiable, cruel, and inhuman detention or non-release, which cruelty and humanity necessarily extended to my wife, my children, my father, the larger family whose anxiety and stress were exacerbated by the non-release in spite of the acquittal. I cannot tell you what it is. You can only feel it. You are discharged and acquitted. And every day you ask. The first day they say it's because it was raining. The next day they say because a paper has to be signed. You know, and most people were afraid. Particularly the military officers are more afraid than the civilians. Now, I was wondering what could be happening that the chief of defense staff, who was in charge of arraignment, in charge of who to try, in charge of who to release when because the judgment was according to the very knowledgeable security chief who came to give evidence this morning, because he knows everything. He said chief of defense staff was the arraignment officer. He was the one in charge of release. The judgment was passed to him. How come I was not released? Because I didn't need PRC confirmation of my release. That's the law. I will just here talk about after that release. But I say I will inform you of something. It's an intuition, Mr. Chairman. You know, I was praying. I had other experience which I don't want to talk about. But I was praying, God, you got me out of this conspiracy to finish me. You must get me released after discharge and acquittal. I couldn't understand. It is only when I was released that I knew the power of God. That when it does something, it does it fully. You know why? If I had been released that day, I do not think I would have reached my house. I'm convinced. But of course, I wasn't a fool. I knew that if I was released and they were going to give me a ride, I would not take the ride. I would just disappear into the marketplace, into some village, and inform my wife that I'm alive somewhere, I'm not going to tell you where I was. I may be a professor, but I'm not a fool. Anyway, so God knew what he was doing, that he didn't get my release until the person pafukat. Now, I will tell you this. When I came out of my release, I got to know of other violations and abuses with regard to my wife and children. These include, but do not exhaust, the following. My wife and children, old and young, were under 24-hour military guard for months. They were not allowed to step out of the building, nor allowed to receive any visitors, even blood relations. And here I should add that my wife was rough-handled and humiliated. She was even detained overnight for daring to respond to a newspaper report by one Colonel Ugo, who said they were going to arraign them. Those with husbands and relatives should go to Jos and meet them. My wife slept in detention overnight. As a result of the situation, my wife could not go to her workplace. My older children could not return to their university campuses to resume school. One of them, who had to forfeit almost a whole semester, who forfeited a whole semester, is sitting here. The younger ones, ages 2, 4.5, and 7 at the time, could not resume their nursery, primary school, or attend their Sunday school. I remember the first time when I came out and I took them to Sunday school, everybody was weeping. Where have they been? Where have they been? Little children, 2, 4.5, 7. Sir, okay, let me. Personal documents and property were carted away from the house without documentation. My vehicle, which I purchased in 1991, 4 years before the appointment of special advisor, was also taken. Of course, thinking I would be executed, I wasn't executed. When I came back, I fought and got my vehicle back. Finally, about the 3rd week of September 1998, while I was still recuperating, and away abroad for medical check and brain scan, with the assistance of a good Samaritan friend, my wife and children were thrown out of the residence with immediate effect. It was executed by one Alhaji Bello Metamasule of the General Services Office, allegedly on the order of the then CGS, Admiral Mike Ahigbe. The brain scan, because I told you I wasn't telling you details, it's as if Mustapha's boys concentrated on my head. And I remember the time.
My Lord, I'm sorry, I want to guide the witness. Now, Prof.
Okay, let me just continue.
No, don't worry. I'm not taking you. I'm not stopping you. Now, you are talking about Mustapha's boys doing some damage to your brain.
Yes.
At what time was this?
First, when they broke down the door of my room, I didn't know what was happening. In fact, I thought it was in connection with the bomb blast of 13th December. And maybe I was responsible for letting the press expose it rather than the attempt to cover it up. I thought that was why they came looking for me. So I told my wife, please go into the bathroom. Go. We don't know who these people are. They broke down the door, and there was no question, no follow me. They were using guns to hit me. Within 1 minute, I was bleeding. So it was so fast, but the thing was sudden. It was brutal. Sir, if a psychiatrist was here, I would tell you, I suffered regression. Regression means you regress into childhood. I suffered regression within the first 10 minutes because I was so battered that I didn't know where the blows were coming from. That I started shaking in the car, and they said that my shaking was too much, that they want to drop me and beat me to death so that I could not even breathe anymore. But it was uncontrollable. I had regressed. And when I got to the villa, you are talking about when they beat my heart. Immediately I got there, and Mustapha said, aha, he was sitting like a general on the, there is this thing they sit on, I don't know what they call it, swagger stick or whatever. He was sitting on it, and everybody, and they bundled me out of the car and threw me to him. He said, yes, Professor, where is the speech? You want to become minister? I say, what speech? When I say what, I'm met with a blow here. When I say, no, I get a blow here. Now, he now said, you Yoruba people, you think you are very wise. Who is very wise now? We or you people? We asked you to come and join us and be second in command. It's not enough for you. You want to take over. I was just saying, because I did not know anything about any coup. If I knew of a coup, I would say so. And if I knew of a coup, I don't think it will fail. And if it will fail, I will not be around to be caught. I told you, they say if you have no money, you have common sense. And God, I have common sense. So I say, I don't know anything about coup. Please, but every word from me is met with a blow from different directions I didn't know how. There was a time, sir, they kicked me off the ground. I didn't know how it was Adebowale and Fadipe who were telling me later in detention that, Prof, we thought they were going to kill you because there was this time they kicked you off the ground, you were about 3 feet off the ground. As I'm on the ground, somebody will come. You know the CSO that time, I'm telling you were lying. The CSO was Lord and Master. People feared him more than they feared even the head of state. To me, it was CSO. I had nothing against him, but I had no fear of him because we had no dealings. He's security chief, I'm advisor. We are of different specialization. I see him, I say CSO. He say Prof. He goes his way. Now, so I don't have any problem, but that day, Jesus Christ. When they kicked me like that and I went down, somebody will give me a blow. CSO is talking to you and you are down. Then I managed to get up. Somebody will say, another will come, CSO is talking to you and you are standing up. Another blow.
You don't die. You don't die.
You know? So I think it got to a point, sir, it got to a point that I think the CSO, it got to a point, I think the CSO himself, by the way, the CSO never touched me. He never touched me. It's only his boy, who I call his boys, because they took me to him. Now, I think he got to a point he thought this professor is going to be killed. So he said, boys, leave him alone. Don't let them believe we are animals. Go and put him there. That's when they told me to go and kneel down somewhere. And even when he was attending to other people, somebody will be passing and just kick you in your rib. Somebody will give you a blow on your head. You know, the first time we took our bath, 2 weeks later, Major Ishaku is of artillery. Major Ishaku said, Prof, I didn't know you were fair-skinned. I thought you were dark like charcoal because all my face and body was black and blue. That's the extent. And that's why when I went abroad, the first thing my friends did for me, I have the receipt here, I have the brain scan result. They said that I had injury here, and it's subcortical. And I should come back after 6 months thereafter for further check. But I've had no money to go back since that time. But I've been teaching for 3 sessions back in ABU, and nobody has said that I'm crazy. So,
Prof, you referred to a brain checkup and a report. Yes, if you see a copy of this report on your brain scan, can you recognize it?
I thought you asked him to read Exhibit 1. Let him finish that. Then you can introduce.
My Lord, I thought I should save time because the way the witness...
He hasn't finished Exhibit 1.
Yeah, no, my Lord, the way...
And we're rising at 5.
Yes,
so
my Lord, the way the witness is going, I may not have cause to ask him further questions again. That's why I'm doing it now. I don't think I will ask him further questions because he has really gone into details, my Lord.
Sir, I keep saying with due respect, I'm not learned, I'm not a lawyer, but
please,
I think whatever time it takes, you ask me the question because it's the only opportunity we have.
Yeah.
Sir, this one goes with the X-ray. I don't know whether you want to see the X-ray. Can I please have the X-ray? Professor Femi Odekunle, MRI brain scan, 24/9/98 from the Lister Hospital, Chelsea Bridge Road, London. Axia T2 and FLAIR and corona and sagittal T1 weighted images were obtained of the brain. There are a number of...
Why not mark it first before you start reading? Exhibit 3, then give him back to read.
Why doing that, sir? Is it possible for me to continue my evidence?
Let's mark it first. Exhibit 3.
Together with the X-ray.
Yes. And then give him back to read.
I was saying, sir, said, read Professor Femi Odekunle, MRI brain scan, 24/9/1998. Axia T2 and FLAIR and corona and sagittal T1 weighted images were obtained of the brain. There are a number of small foci of T2 hyperintensity in frontal and parietal white matter. These are predominantly subcortical and are likely to be on a vascular basis. No other focal intracerebral lesion was demonstrated. The ventricular configuration appears normal. Incidental note is made of inflammatory change in the maxillary, antral, and ethmoidal hair cells. I will beg your lordship to please just look at the X-ray because that's the only copy I have.
Is it not enough?
Is
you
it
can
not?
keep your X-ray rather than
Yes. Just to let you know that it's there. It's not.
All right. Let's look at it, see what it is, and give him back. Why not?
No, we are not taking the X-ray.
No. We're not admitting the X-ray itself. It's a report that we've admitted as Exhibit 3. Can we interpret it? Give me the X-ray.
May I continue, sir?
Go on. X-ray is Exhibit 3.
Yes, sir. Now I'm on my summation.
Yes.
Summarily, sir. The instances of violation and abuses may be listed as follows. Physical brutalization without any just cause by Major Hamza Al-Mustapha's operatives. To the extent that the report of my brain scan in September 1998 shows injuries. Witnesses of this banging, Major Detention, Mrs. Rukiat Odekunle, Oladoshu Odekunle, Oludayo Odekunle, Ape Odekunle, just to mention a few. I omit item 2 there because it's been postponed for future handling. Arresting me and detaining me without any incriminating evidence. By the way, sir, I must explain that one. Physical brutalization without any just cause. Even if I've done a coup, you are supposed to come and say you are under arrest. It's only if I resisted that you should. That's what I mean by without any just cause. Arresting me and detaining me without any incriminating evidence, again, without just cause. Thirdly, imprisoning my wife and children and thereby subjecting them to traumatic mental and social deprivations, as well as with respect to work and education, again, without just cause. Subjecting me to inhuman and cruel conditions of detention, physically, socially, and psychologically. Fabricating treason charges against me. Witnesses here could be Major General Chris Garuba, Colonel Franco Menka, Major Bashir Mamoni, Lieutenant Colonel Badewale, my tribunal appointed defense lawyer, and General Absalami Abubakar, the then Chief of Defense Staff, who was in charge of the Coup trial. Continued illegal detention and failure to release me after I was discharged and acquitted. Witnesses, Major General Victor Malu and those listed earlier on. Malicious ejection of my family from the residence in my absence and without prior adequate notice. Again, I listed the defendants. With respect to these matters, I had requested in the petition that the Office of the Chief of Defense Staff should provide this commission with copies of the following 5 documents, which I could not get being an ordinary Nigerian without the power of the commission. First, the report of the General Chris Garuba's SIP is very important to prove whether or not they had any evidence to even try me at all. 2, because there were statements, I don't know whether they were rumors, that even those released by Chris Garuba panel, when they got to Abuja, somebody powerful will send them back, that this man must be tried. So the only way to determine this is to have that report, the report of the Chris Garuba panel. What did he recommend? Who did he recommend for trial? Who did he say should not be tried? It is important, and you have the power to do so. Secondly, arraignment papers issued under the signature of the then Chief of Defense Staff to show that there was no charge on me by the day he said I must be tried. Thirdly, my first separate written statements ordered after those interrogations. Fifthly, the charge sheet, the final charge sheet on my case. And finally, sir, the judgment of the tribunal as delivered by General Victor Malu on 28th April 1998. Because I must tell you, it remains a source of mental agony to me, sir, that I remain denied of these documents. I mean, they are crucial to the documentation of my experiences, if not for my children, but for posterity. And I could get them through the auspices of this commission. Now, sir, I said the last part of my presentation, oral presentation, had to do with concluding remarks. What I've just done here, sir, Mr. Chairman, is a simple and straightforward rendition of my tortuous experience for ease of comprehension and appreciation of what I went through. Torture, the later violations and abuses, is not just physical. It is not just physical, sir. It is equally mental, it is equally familial, it is equally social psychological. Secondly, sir, it is not limited to the directly tortured. It radiates to his family, his wife, his children, even friends. And the effect is not confined to the duration of the actual experience. It could be life-lasting. Up to today, if I'm upstairs and the door moves downstairs, my body shakes. If I'm driving on the road and a car seems to follow me for about 10-5 minutes, I have suspicions that they may be the goons of some people who are still operating in town. You know, even though I leave my faith in the hands of God, I'm still human. So I have these feelings. And I must say this one, and I'm not in theater, I'm in social sciences. My youngest son was 7 years old when this experience, and we were very close. Do you know, up to today, when the boy hears the name of those concerned, he continues to sob uncontrollably. I tell him, forget it. God has saved us. You say, yes, Daddy, but every time I remember, I feel a sharp pain in my heart. I'm telling you the truth as sworn on the Bible. This is a 7-year-old boy. So it's not just you, it affects others. This torture, cruel, and unusual human punishment, as well as related violation, must be prevented at all costs. And this is the job of your commission. And herein lies the importance, the value of your work. However, I want to give advice to everybody here, even including those on the high table. If ever you are unfortunate to be so subjected, my personal experience and advice to you is that in such circumstances and place, all you have is your mind, and you must hold on to it at any and at all costs. It is very, very important. In that circumstance, all you have is your mind. If you lose it, you are lost. Finally, my concluding remark. Effort must be made by your commission, sir, to avoid this generalized blanket apportioning of blame by people to say the fault belongs to the military or it is the Hausa Fulanis. That is a total lie. It is, you can't put the blame blanketly on the military or on the Hausa Fulanis. They say Northerners. To me, it's a question of the mind. Instead, because let me tell you, sir, true, there may be the few Abachas and Mustafas, but there are also the majority Abdusalamis and Umars in the army. We must think of them so that we don't destroy the institution because of the behavior of a few people. Besides, these few Abachas and Mustafas are not without their many southern collaborators, the Adedapos, the Chukwudimas, who collaborate with them. The Tokoyas, yes. Now, so it is important, sir, that we isolate. Secondly, there may be, when you talk about this North business, I've been teaching in ABU for close to 30 years. And I have thousands and thousands, most of my students are from this part. I married in there, they are my friends. I'm a Christian, but I send my wife to Mecca. And I give my ram to the parents or to her every. So, but the people having this idea of North-South, I don't see it that way. I see it as a matter of the ruling classes in every group. It's just that one ruling group is able to dominate the other ruling groups, but they are all collaborators. And when we realize this, we avoid this blanket, it is the Northerners, it is the military. Otherwise, we'll do danger to ourselves. If you look at it, sir, there are very few Wadanasis and Guazos that I know in my experience. But there are also the majority Ango Abdullahs of this world, the Ahmed Yayales of this world, Abdullah Aliyus of this world. And these few Wadanasis and Guazos also have their southern collaborators. So it is important not to let people use you to put blanket blame on people. They will obfuscate, they will put blinkers on your eyes to see the real truth. Sir, the implication of what I've said is that individuals responsible are the ones to be held accountable. If a CSO is a psychopath is somebody who cannot feel pain, who don't have conscience. Culture has not been able to nurture their nature to have conscience. They will do and look at you and tell lies. Or somebody who lacks parental upbringing has to be torturing your father's age mates. These are the kinds of people that you need to be held accountable. Sir, I thank you for inviting me and for listening.
On a later date, Major Hamza Mustapha apologized to Professor Femi Odekunle and his wife for the role he played in the professor's ordeal. Professor Femi Odekunle died on 29 December 2020 in Abuja after a brief illness. Until his death, he was a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC, and Chairman Governing Council, Federal University of Technology, Minna.